Welcome, everybody. This is the second part of our Impact series at Binghamton. We're going to be covering service learning and study abroad here at Binghamton, a big component of student life here, outside of the academic work. So definitely an important session for you guys to come to today. We're so excited that you're here. My name is Stephanie again. I work in Binghamton Admissions. I'm a counselor here. This is my email. Also, we are joined by my colleague, Christy Friedrichsen. She's going to be helping out again with the back-end chat support for you guys, so any questions that you may have throughout. And we'll be sharing this again, but this is a link to our homepage. You can find many virtual offerings that we have for fall, just given the current climate that we're in right now. So there'll be a lot of, if you copy and paste that link, you can have access to several webinars, much like this one we are having today, and we'll have some previously recorded sessions that we're having for open house on our site as well going forward. So make sure you note this link, but I'm sure we're going to share it again in the chat for you throughout the presentation. Okay, so we have some wonderful panelists today. We have two offices. This is a combined session. So we have the Office of International Education and Global Initiatives. We have Linda Torricelli representing that office, who is the coordinator of education abroad. We also have Alex Russell. He's a current BU student majoring political science and German, and he is going to speak about his abroad experience today as well. So we're lucky to have both of them. And then we also have folks representing the Center for Civic Engagement at Binghamton Service Learning Office. Barrett Breton is the Faculty Engagement Associate. We also are thankful to have Al Voss. He collegiate professor for Hinman College, coordinator of Public Service Learning Community, and he also is a professor of English at Binghamton, so many roles there. We then have two student panelists as well, Maeve Kelly, who's a nursing major, and she was active in the Public Service Learning Community as well as community service at Binghamton, and Julia Amodeo, who is Environmental Studies and PPL major, and she's also active in community service. So they're both going to give kind of their perspective of that experience at Binghamton. And we're going to start out with Linda. She's going to start the presentation. I'm going to send it off to her. So go ahead, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. It is great to have you with us here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Linda Torricelli, and I am the coordinator of education abroad here at Binghamton. What I do is I help students study abroad, and I am very excited to be the first of many tonight who are going to get to chat with you a little bit about how you can make the most of your Binghamton experience should you decide to come here. It's usually pretty exciting to be able to talk with you guys at an open house about all the things that Binghamton is and that all the things that it could be to you. Obviously, things are a little different this year, and so we're excited to be here tonight. So with that, before I go into everything on education abroad, I wanted to talk about the elephant in the room, or the elephant on my slide, and that is about COVID-19. So normally we would be together in person in some way, but we can't do that. And I think when trying to think about education abroad, that can feel a little overwhelming, or how can I go abroad when I can't even go to Binghamton to see you guys? And I just want you to know, don't worry, because the pandemic isn't going to be here forever, and things aren't going to be like this forever. And as a prospective student, you have many years to plan your education abroad experience. So try to think towards 2022, 2023, kind of where you see yourself then, right? It'll be all rainbows and sunshine, pandemic will be over, and students will be abroad again, okay? So a bit about education abroad at Binghamton University. Our students are incredibly lucky because they have access to just over 50 Binghamton Education Abroad programs, which means you can get Binghamton credit for studying abroad. And that can go towards your major or your minor or your general education credits, or you can even do it as elective credit if you want. That all depends kind of on where you are within your degree progress, okay? In general, students can participate in education abroad anytime after their first year at Binghamton. Some of you on the call might be transfer students. You would likely be able to go after your first semester, and so we just have to talk a little bit more about that, okay? So when you're looking at programs, there's many different things to consider. You really want to look at your plan, your individualized plan, and what you want to get out of it. So when you meet with our office, we talk a lot about benefits. We talk about what academic benefits do you hope to get, what personal benefits do you hope to get, and what professional benefits do you hope to get. We send about 500 students abroad every year, which is about 3.5% of our undergraduate student population. So education abroad can really be used to make your resume stand out. It can be used to enhance your coursework. It can be used to kind of expand upon your cross-cultural communication skills, language skills, and the list kind of goes on and on. So there's a lot of different benefits for studying abroad, but usually that's where we start off. What do you want to get out of it? Once we know what you hope to get out of it as the student, we start talking about different programs, okay? And like I said, you have access to over 50 programs that provide you with Binghamton credit, but you actually have access to more than 1,000 through SUNY. So you can pretty much go anywhere in the world, anytime. You can study abroad in the summer. One of our students on this call has studied abroad in the summer, and you can study abroad during the semester. Alex has studied abroad during the semester. You can go during spring break or winter. Kind of the options are endless, right? When you go abroad, you can take coursework for your major, or you can do service learning or internships or research. There's a lot of different programs out there, and so the best thing you could do is come and talk with us. We encourage our students to talk with us as soon as possible. We'll never be like, oh man, it's your second week here at Binghamton. What are you doing in our office? We're always very excited to talk with first semester students, whether they're first years or transfers, because the sooner you start planning, the easier it is, right? And then typically, if we were at an open house and we were standing in the University Union and you came through and you came to the Education Abroad table, I would hear 3 very popular questions. And the first would be, I'm going to be X major. Can I study abroad? And the answer to that is always yes, absolutely. It depends on what you want to do when you go abroad, and then we find the right program for you. Some students are in programs that have very tight schedules, such as Decker School of Nursing, and perhaps for those students, you'll take summer classes. Some students need certain major credits that they need to take here on campus, and so maybe you'll rearrange your schedule so that you can take general education credits when you are abroad, right? So it depends on every student, but know that you can go abroad. The next question we get is when do students go abroad? And the answer to that is whenever is right. A lot of things are kind of case by case in study abroad, right? So can I go abroad for my major? Of course. When should I go? And that depends. Many students go abroad their sophomore and junior years here at Binghamton, but we do have some students who go abroad their senior year, and we actually do have some students who go abroad the summer after their first year. Some of our students even go abroad twice, which is pretty cool. The third question we get from students is, but how much will it cost? Which is a great question and very important to keep in mind as you look at programs. And the answer to that is that it always depends on the program. So we have a lot of scholarships available for Binghamton students, and they can be program specific or student specific, but also too, students can utilize their financial aid package so that the costs are transferable, right? So you're not adding on more costs to your educational experience. The final thing, and this is all in that bottom box underneath the picture in Peru, is that exchange programs can be very cost effective. And so when you are on an exchange program, you pay Binghamton tuition, but to be somewhere else. And I love Binghamton to pieces. I grew up in New York City. I've moved to Binghamton 3 times. There's no place I'd rather be other than Binghamton. However, when the opportunity does come to go someplace else or to learn something new or to try something new, it is often advantageous to do so. And when you are on an exchange program, your costs for participation in the program can be approximately the same amount that it would be to be here at Binghamton. So we have a list of costs that is on every program page, and when you compare them, you'll see that they're different. But we have programs in Tokyo, Seoul, Bath, Nottingham, Amsterdam, where they are exchange programs and they are very cost effective. So where there's a will, there's a way, is what I'm saying. Once we get past the pandemic, once you pick a major, come hang out with us and we'll talk more and we'll help you figure out kind of what your next best steps are. As prospective students, we welcome you to join in our virtual advising hours. We have them every Monday through Friday from 1 to 4. You might be in school, virtual school, or in-person school during those times. However, when you have a break, if you have February break or any sort of day off, maybe you get election day off, feel free to pop by and check in with us via that Zoom room number. You'll need either to create a Zoom account, which you probably already have because you're on this call, or a Facebook account that you can link to Zoom, and you just fill out a quick sign-in form. It will ask you what your B number is, just put a bunch of zeros, and then pop on in and come chat with us one-on-one. We really want to be able to talk with you as you get ready to figure out where you're going next, and share any additional information about education abroad at Binghamton. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Alex, and he is a current student here, and he's going to share a little bit more about his experience studying abroad.
Hi, yeah, so I'm Alex Russell. I'm a current junior here at Binghamton. I spent last year studying in Germany, and I had studied in a Binghamton exchange program at the University of Leipzig. And so I was originally going to go for the academic year, but then because of the pandemic, it was shortened just to the semester. But I still was able to experience quite a bit of culture, as you can see in the pictures here on the slide. And yeah, so as an exchange student, I was a member. I was, like Linda had said, I was paying Binghamton tuition, but I was also a student enrolled directly at the University of Leipzig. And there, because my majors here in Binghamton are German and political science, I was able to study political science at one of their faculties there. And my exchange program was conducted all in the German language. So I was taking courses on the German language itself and also political science courses in German. But there are many different options. And if you come to the IAGI office, we'll be more than happy to help you find the right program. And yeah, so when I was there, I was able to experience quite a bit. Not only was it just entertaining, being able to really experience a bunch of different customs and just everything in Germany, but I was also able to really enhance my resume by being able to really challenge myself studying in a foreign language, and I was able to bring back a lot of transferable skills. And yeah, so it was definitely a great experience. I was able to network and meet some other people from across the world. And what I would recommend is if you even just have a slight inclination that you may want to study abroad, I would definitely recommend stopping by at the office. There's programs for every major, every duration. You can really do, if you want to study abroad, you can definitely find a way. Finances should not get in the way. There's, like Linda had also said, there's financial aid options. There's plenty of scholarships through the university. And yeah, so you can really make the most out of your experience here just by spending any duration of time abroad and being able to enhance your resume and also just enjoy your time traveling the world.
Great. Thank you so much, Alex and Linda. That was a wonderful kind of overview of abroad options at Binghamton. And now we are going to transition over to, if my PowerPoint wants to work correctly. All right, so now we have Barrett Brandon, the Faculty Engagement Associate for the Center for Civic Engagement. He's just going to do a presentation on service learning at Binghamton.
All right, thank you so much, Stephanie, and welcome everybody. And thank you to Linda and Alex for your perspectives on something I'll continue with, and that's really different ways to think about gaining benefits that are academic, personal, and really professional. And as Alex put it, so these transferable skills. And that's really has something to do with the Center for Civic Engagement, and we're here to cultivate partnerships that really strengthen communities and develop active, engaged citizens like yourselves. So what we do is really serve as a hub for coordinating community-engaged learning, also known as service learning or academic service learning. And this, as you probably know, is an active learning strategy that combines both service experiences that meet identified community challenges with really meaningful reflection on the course content. In fact, to really be defined as a service learning experience, it often needs to be then credit-bearing, like through a class you'd be taking. It involves in really being linked to course objectives and goals. And also, as you can see, most importantly, it has sort of meaningful reflection in terms of relationship with the community as well. In fact, community-engaged learning has been shown to be effective in developing these transferable skills I just talked about in terms of critical thinking, problem-solving, leadership, decision-making, collaboration, communication. And these are, I think, definitely transferable skills you would also have in other types of experiences like study abroad, you saw an example, and other what we all call these high-impact practices. All right, next slide, Stephanie. So how do we actually do this? So what we do is we really coordinate and sustain collaborations with community partners. One way that we do that is we keep an active service listing database with our community partners, and they reach out and essentially put on their opportunities for students to do service opportunities. It also is an opportunity for our faculty to see the kinds of potential service opportunities they want their students to have in specific course-based experiences. We also support those faculty. My main role as a faculty engagement associate is to support faculty that are teaching those courses in terms of course development, course pedagogies, and also making those linkages with community partners that best meet the need of the faculty and the students and the community partners themselves. Really is a reciprocal and mutually engaged experience that we want to set up. But we also assist students in developing their own community-based service and learning opportunities and projects, even research projects students will often do. And so again, both in terms of the service listing database, but also coming into our office, we're, again, as Linda said, the elephant in the room, post-COVID, come on in. We'd love to sit down and talk to you with any opportunities and ideas you have about really being engaged with the community. And, we'd really love to see students, make their way off the campus at any point in time, particularly their freshman year to begin with and beyond, sort of become engaged with our local communities. And so the other thing we also do is we're active as part of the Center for Civic Engagement and Civic Mindedness and really creating civic citizenry is facilitate voter registration and democratic participation. So that's another goal of our actually Center for Civic Engagement. So it's a great pleasure and honor actually to turn this over to a group of folks, both faculty and students, who are going to talk a bit about experiences with academic service learning. And I was going to turn it over to Al Voss, a professor of English, a collegiate professor in Hinman College, and a director of the Public Service Learning Community. So Al will be introduced then, and then we'll hear from both Neve and Julie about their experiences as students. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. It's good to talk with you as prospective students. And as you've already heard, I wear several hats. My name is Al Voss, as you probably can see on screen. I've been professor of English. But I also want to stress something else. You've just heard Barry say that the Center for Civic Engagement is like a hub. It's a good image. It's a center where all your questions can be answered about civic engagement and service learning. And I want to talk to you about what we might call a spoke that leads from that hub. It's Hinman College. And I want to take this minute to say to you as prospective students, I want to branch out, say a little more than about service learning itself. I want to say that as you look at Binghamton, the genius of Binghamton, what really makes Binghamton special in my view is, of course, that we're academically strong. We're a wonderful campus. We're a beautiful campus. But in terms of your experience, as you arrive on campus, you have the choice of living in one of our residential colleges. We like to call them communities. because one of the challenges you face as you come to Binghamton is finding your place. How do you discover where and how you belong, or that you belong, or that Binghamton is the right place for you? And just as at home, you feel most comfortable when you're in a neighborhood. A neighborhood is defined not just by its physical boundaries. A neighborhood is defined by where you're comfortable, where you feel like you know your way, where you may not be known by name, but you are recognized and you recognize the places and the people of your neighborhood. Even if you're, I am not a New York City native, and I've always been struck by the vastness of New York City. But then when I talk with students, I always discover that they identify not just with the city, though they do that too, but with a neighborhood. And so as you look at Binghamton, one of the questions you'll be asked is, which neighborhood do you want to live in? They're all good. I'm particularly involved with Hinman, as this slide indicates, but I want to make sure that you know that the other communities, and I'll name them, there's Mountain View, there's Newing, there's Dickinson, and there's College in the Woods. And these 5 communities are all good places. They all function sort of as spokes to the hub of the center of campus. But they are smaller places, communities where you can establish an identity where you feel like you belong. And I know Maeve and Kelly and Alex can talk about that more as we get into the Q&A part in a little bit. But I just wanted you to know that Binghamton is special, and Binghamton is virtually unique among the SUNYs, the state universities, campuses, by offering you this chance to affiliate with one of the colleges. Not just a chance, you'll be asked which of the residential communities you'd like to live in. Which leads me to, of course, to the fact of, to talk more about Hinman. I admit I'm partial to Hinman. I've been in Hinman for over 20 years, and it's a great place. We have a lot of community spirit and a lot of community pride. And we have, and this is really the point, we have a certain culture. And we're not alone in that. I want to again make sure that you realize that the other communities, whether it's Mountain View or Dickinson or Newing or College in the Woods, each has its own identity, its own sense of culture, and each can become your home. And in Hinman, we work hard at that to create that sense of community and that sense of home. Now, that leads me to sort of a second thought, and this sort of ties in with both parts of our presentation. And that is that you're going to come to, I hope, Binghamton, and you're going to do the usual. You're going to take classes. In Binghamton, you usually take 4 courses with 4 credits each. And you're going to read your books and write your papers and take your exams and do the labs. It's all good, and you got to do it. But you have unique and special opportunities. We educators like to talk about high-impact learning experiences. And there are many, and 2 of them are relevant in this presentation. Study abroad is a unique and highly impactful kind of education. It's an experiential education and an academic education both at the same time. The same way with community service. It's experiential and it's academic, and the 2 are linked and they enhance each other. And just sort of by the by, let me digress for a minute to say, it's not a digression, but let me add for a minute. There are other kinds of high impact learning experiences. For example, small seminars, which you can often find in your first year in writing classes, or maybe in your senior year in a special seminar, or research. Binghamton students, our undergraduates, are known for getting involved in research. That is definitely a unique and high impact learning experience. Internships are very big at Binghamton. There's an office that sponsors hundreds of internships every semester. So look for them when you come. Binghamton has them in abundance, and they're an important part of the journey you're on. So community service. As you see in Hinman College, there is a public service learning community. And so it's, shall we call it, a community within a community, a group of students who live on a floor together because they have a shared interest in doing community service. And they've chosen that maybe in their second year, but mostly in their first year. When you come to Binghamton, I'm assuming you're going to apply, you're going to get accepted. You'll be asked where you want to live, which community you want to live in. And the first question you'll be asked even before that is there one of the learning communities in our various communities? There's an engineering learning community in Mountain View, and there's a scholars community in Newing. And each of our residential communities has a specialty. Public service learning community is a specialty of Hinman College. It's part of our culture. We have a special floor for it. We have a vice president of community service as part of our government. And Julia and Maeve will talk about that in a minute. So as you can think about coming to Binghamton, think about the kinds of special experiences that you can have to enrich that experience. Places that will help you feel grounded and give you a sense of focus and community, a sense of belonging. So let me say a little bit more about that. You may have heard wrongly, but I know that stereotype is out there, that Binghamton is a small town and a boring town. There's nothing to do in Binghamton. That is quite false, and I'm sure Julia and Maeve and Alex can talk more about that, and they will in a minute. But I'm here to sort of caution you against buying into that stereotype, because the community of Binghamton has a lot to offer. You have to discover it, and the learning community is one way to help you discover it. I'll use a strong image. When you come to Binghamton at first, you'll have to find your way around, and it's a sizable campus. And at first, you may sort of feel like, you have a lot of work to do just to feel like you know your way around and where you belong. But sooner or later, that's going to happen. If you live in Hinman, it'll happen quickly because that's who we are. And you'll discover eventually that the campus is a kind of bubble. It's a comfortable bubble. It's a good bubble, but it is a kind of bubble. And you will be challenged to get outside that bubble because you're going to grow when you go outside that bubble. You're going to discover that there is so much more to collegiate experience than going to class and passing the course, getting an A on the exams, and going from there. And so what better way to get involved in the community than doing community service? And the Center for Civic Engagement is a hub and a clearinghouse for all kinds of information about doing community service, including civic engagement like voting. But so civic engagement and public service can mean many kinds of things. And one of the things we work on in our public service learning community is to enrich and enlarge that sense of what those experiences are like. And so I'm going to end with one more thought, and then I'm going to turn it over to Maeve and Julia. And my thought is, and it's been implicit in what I've already said, my thought is that you, as a student at Binghamton, are on a journey. And it's a very exciting journey. I'm a professor. I have watched students take that journey, and there's nothing more fun and nothing more satisfying, really, than to help students on that journey. And it is a journey of growth. It's a journey of change. I always say to my first semester students that when you go home at the end of the first semester, you are a different student than when you came, and your family and your parents and your friends will know that. And that's part of the excitement of Binghamton. And that journey, I hope, will include a journey into service. I have a motto that I like. I put on the syllabus of my courses for my first year students. I say that the best way to find yourself, and notice, think about that, college is a place of finding your place and in finding yourself. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And that's a high-minded ideal, but I think as you listen to Maeve and Julia, they'll have something to say about that in their own way. I'm sure they can tell that story. So I'm going to turn it over to, I think, Julia first, and then to Maeve.
Well, thank you, Al. Yeah, hi, my name is Julia. I'm a senior here at Binghamton, and I spent 3 years living in Hinman. I currently live downtown, but I lived in Hinman for my first year. I picked it as a freshman, and as Al was saying, Hinman is known for its culture of community and involvement, and I really found that to be true almost instantaneously. I didn't know what exactly I wanted to get involved in college, and I was looking for an opportunity to explore and really discover what exactly would be right for me. So as soon as I got to Hinman, I was overwhelmed with welcoming and encouragement by staff members, by other people who live there, and it turned out that I would run for my hall community government. As I was saying, we have 2 levels of community government in Hinman. We have one for each hall, and then we have one e-board that works with the vice presidents of each hall. So I first got involved with service as the vice president of service for my building. And through that, I was able to hold events that impacted the community, but I also was able to work with my mentor and have my first experience with the off-campus community. The really interesting and I think my favorite part of how Hinman conducts its service opportunities is that you never know what is going to happen. Like, we can work with this Center for Civic Engagement, but it's also really well known in the community. So I had the chance to go off campus and work with different types of people, work with animals, work in different areas downtown. And through that and through the following years, I was able to expand that bubble that Al was talking about. If you've never been to Binghamton, like Al said, it's easy to get lost in the campus bubble and it not go beyond that. But I'm very glad I did. I volunteered at the museum downtown. I volunteered at a public library for a Halloween party. I've worked with animals at rescue shelters and the Mental Health Association of the Southern Tier. So this was all stuff that I was able to do because I put myself out there and I ran for hall service. And then in the second year, I was fortunate enough to be elected the higher up service position that I was talking about earlier. And I was able to facilitate those kind of events even more and continue volunteering in different places into my third year when I became an RA. So what I take away from my service experience and the variety of experiences that I've had is that it is very easy to stay in the bubble, but it's also very easy to expand it. And I know that the people who live downtown are very appreciative when we as students do that. And also, I can't imagine my time at Binghamton without Hinman and without the service experience that I've had. And that includes Maeve, who will speak next, because I got to work with her as well, and she's amazing. But just by putting myself out there a little bit and looking a little bit for these opportunities, was I able to fall into this whole experience of community and service that Hinman and Binghamton as a whole were able to provide for me. So with that, I'm going to give it to Maeve. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Julia. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I followed a very similar track that Julia has already mentioned. I wasn't particularly involved in service during high school, but I decided I was going to come to Binghamton, and I was touring all of the not learning communities, the living communities on campus. I had no idea where I wanted to live. Um, and I was absolutely terrified of making friends in college, but I figured there couldn't be mean people living on a floor dedicated to public service, so I might as well live there. And turns out I was right. I haven't met a single mean person in Hinman or honestly Binghamton, so that's been a wonderful experience. And I met just the most amazing, welcoming, kind of people, both on the floor and in Hinman in general, Julia included. As she stated, we've worked together, and it's been an amazing experience. But yeah, so the public service learning community, I lived there for my first 2 years of school, which I can't even express how grateful I am for the experience. It really helps me immerse myself into the Binghamton community off campus, which, like Al and Julia have referenced, it's easy to stay in, but like Julia said, it's really easy to expand your horizons as well. And I had the privilege of working with a variety of nonprofit organizations and community leaders. And like I said, I hadn't worked in public service very much during high school, but I think service is a little bit like potato chips or tattoos. You start and it's really hard to stop because you just meet the most amazing, inspiring people. And it's so fulfilling, and you learn so much, and then you really don't want to stop. It's just a snowball effect. And so that's sort of what happened. I got involved with the public service learning community, and then I ended up running for the service position specific to my dorm building my freshman year, completely on a whim. My suite mate asked if I wanted to run with her, and I said, why not? And then somehow I was elected. But that was an amazing experience. I worked under Julia. She was my mentor. And I had the privilege of providing service opportunities for the students living in Hinman. And I also got to work with community organizations. And then the following year, I was lucky enough to be elected to the Vice President of Service for Hinman overall. So like Julia, I was able to work with my mentees in all of the buildings in Hinman, and we collaborated and created service opportunities both on and off campus for the students living in Hinman. I've gotten to work with so many amazing nonprofits in the Binghamton community. I've worked with Vines, which is a community garden that helps to fight against food insecurity in the local area. I've gotten to work with NOMA, which stands for North of Main, and that works to increase the standard of living in the neighborhood north of Main Street in Binghamton. But I probably worked most closely with an organization called the Rescue Mission, which is a local shelter that houses about 30 men who just need a place to stay for a variety of reasons. And that's been an incredible experience. I started making meals there my freshman year, and I just sort of never stopped. But I've gotten to know a lot of the residents, as have so many of my peers, and making dinner with the residents turned into jam sessions that we have with the residents and chess tournaments, and so many friendships have blossomed from that partnership. So that's been absolutely amazing. And I was thinking recently about what I've learned, I guess, in college and how I've changed since coming to college. And honestly, although, yes, it's important to know how to take someone's blood pressure as hopefully a future nurse, I think the most valuable things that I've learned in school have come from service, either outside of the classroom or service learning inside the classroom. And I know that knowledge and that perspective will stick with me as I move forward in life, and it's really valuable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia and Maeve. That was great that you shared all those wonderful experiences, and we're definitely going to expand on them more. So now for the rest of this session, we're kind of just going to do a Q&A. You guys have had some great questions for us in the back end, and we also have some other questions that we're going to get to that's going to cover all the ground that I think that you'll want to hear about. First, I'm going to start out with the folks from CCE. Do I have to be or how do I find service learning classes? And if so, in addition to that, do you have to be in certain programs or certain fields of study to engage in service learning or community, endeavors, or can any program or major get involved? So I'll have anybody jump in there.
I'll just start to say that, yes, much like studying abroad, there is no major, no college that wouldn't provide that opportunity to do some kind of a community-engaged learning experience or even research experience as well. Going back to the earlier question, in addition to providing our service listing database, which is sort of just general opportunities for students and for faculty, we also have a designation process. So there are courses that are designated as community-engaged learning courses or academic service learning courses, and those will show up when you go to register. When you go to register, there'll be a little special attributes to a class, and there'll be a drop-down menu that then you can actually see whether those have been designated as academic service learning courses. So, I mean, that's like a specialty sort of designation we have as academic service learning, community-engaged learning. But there are still other opportunities that students can have through other courses as well that would still involve a type of community engagement.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. I think I'm going to jump up. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Al.
I'll pick up on that. You know, I use the image, picking up on Barry's image of a hub and spokes. So to you prospective students out there, yes, you've heard a lot just in the last few minutes about Hinman as one spoke that is connected to that hub, but there are many spokes connected to that hub, and it's a matter of just knowing where that center is and going there.
All right, so I'm going to transition over to a kind of a broad-oriented questions right now. So I have a great question from an attendee here. Are all classes abroad in the language of the country you're staying in, or does it depend on the program and classes you are taking? In addition to that, do students have to know a second language to do a study abroad experience, or can they, can they kind of learn from there? So I can probably give that one to Linda.
Sounds good. Great question. So you do not need to know a second language in order to study abroad, and it is very possible to take coursework in English. Alex's program, the coursework was in German, and Julia did a language program in Spanish in Spain, but those are just two of many programs. So for example, we have a partnership with Lorenzo de' Medici, and they have campuses in Florence and Tuscania. And when students go to those campuses, they can choose to take either coursework in English or coursework in Italian. And the coursework that is done in Italian is Italian language learning. So you can go with absolutely no knowledge of the Italian language and then study abroad for a semester or a summer or a short term with Lorenzo de' Medici and still receive academic credit.
Great. All right. In addition to that, another kind of study abroad oriented question, and this one can go to, I believe, Alex and Julia. I know, Alex, you studied abroad in Germany for a semester, and Julia studied abroad in Spain, I believe, for a summer. So this is kind of a great question for one of you to chat about if you'd like, or both, actually. So how different would studying abroad be over the summer compared to studying abroad for a semester? So each of you have had either or. So, Alex, you want to go first? Is your experience as a semester duration?
Yeah. So for the semester, I think so. Pre-departure, study abroad, it'll be the same. You go to orientations and you start preparing, working with the IEGI in order to prepare for all of like the courses you may take and just general information and advice, safety, all of that. And so when I was abroad then, I had enrolled in the University of Leipzig, where I was studying. And so then I was treated as an exchange student there. And by doing so, I was able to enroll in specific courses just like any other student would. And yeah, so by being there for a full semester, I was treated much more like a student of that university, especially also just being in the exchange program.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Russell. Julia, do you have any thoughts on the summer duration that you experienced at Binghamton?
Yeah.
Or in Spain?
Yeah. For me, mine was different in, well, not only time, I went for 6 weeks in the summer. So my program I went had the option of going for 4 or 6 weeks, and I did 6. And so during those weeks, I took a total of 2 classes in Spanish. One was a grammar class, and the other one was a language class, and it was split that I would take each of them like every day for a shorter amount of time because of the 6 weeks that I was there. Additionally, I was there in the summer when the University of Oviedo was not in session, and so the people that I met were from the United States. So like Alex was saying, he was more immersed as a student of the university, and while I technically was a student of the University of Oviedo, I met people from Iowa and Missouri and Utah versus people who were from the area and went to that college. So it was definitely different in that way. But I did take language classes that were fully in Spanish, and the professors that we had were professors at the university itself.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Alex and Julia. Okay, so next question, we're going to pivot again to the CC folks here. Let me see here. So could anybody speak to how roommate selection works within a service learning community? Is it different? I know Maid had a suite, you mentioned that. So how does that process work?
Yeah, sure. So I know that I actually never participated in the standard roommate selection for the entire university because my experience living on campus was always in the public service learning community. But I do know that choosing your roommate anywhere on campus is essentially you can either choose them beforehand or you can go random and choose it through the housing process. But specifically for the learning community, I was able to request that, well, I had met my roommate before committing to the learning community, and we decided we wanted to live there together. So I requested that we room together in that community. And this was all through correspondence with Al, the collegiate professor. And so I didn't even create an account on the housing portal, and we were placed there together. And then the rest of our suite mates were random placements that Al also coordinated based on who applied to the learning community.
Great, thank you so much, Maeve. How about we give this one, I'll give this one to Alex. So if you were to study abroad during a semester, would you graduate late or would you still graduate on time? How does that work?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on the school that you're in, the college that you're studying at Binghamton, and also the majors that you have. But yeah, so for me personally, even by studying abroad, what was initially supposed to be a full year, I was not pushing anything back. And so depending on the program that you go on, especially, so if you're working in Harper College, it's that you tend to have a more flexible experience. But yeah, you can study abroad, you can study the courses there and get the credits transferred back to Binghamton, and you would just go through your individual departments and be able to, you can get the courses approved toward your major and even gen ed requirements. And yeah, so you don't really have to delay any of your graduation plans or spend any more on tuition.
Thank you so much, Alex. Okay, we talked about, I think this is kind of a relevant question right now for, in the current climate surrounding COVID and everything. So if this could go to both offices, we'll start out with the CCE office. How has COVID affected the way programs are operated or learning experience or service learning is operated at Binghamton? And are there certain safety precautions that we're going to be taking that could go into next year? That's an important question for us to answer today. So.
Yeah, thanks for that, Stephanie. Thanks for those people that asked that question. I think, yes, we're taking it as it comes. I'll say that as we moved into going online in the spring semester, we found that our faculty were particularly innovative, and students as well, in finding virtual opportunities, still being able to be connected with the community partners, still being able to do some kind of capacity building, even though it was remotely done that way. As we move into this fall semester, I mean, there are some face-to-face opportunities, but our community partners are well aware of all the safety protocols in place, PPP, et cetera, in terms of how to operate that. So in terms of distancing, in terms of the types of activities, the limited amount of time they may be doing, for example, working at at Chow, which is basically a large warehouse for food distribution. And so, yes, I think going to the future, I mean, I think as Linda had mentioned, we hope that sun comes out someday and we're no longer in this situation. So we'll get back to sort of more face-to-face opportunities. But like everyone, we're continuing to monitor, of course, what goes on, how the numbers change. And I think, again, students and faculty both are very well aware of how to sort of constantly navigate that, and particularly how to be able to transition and be flexible and resilient at the same time as our community partners are.
Thank you. Linda? I know you talked about it, Linda, so you don't have to go crazy, but, just to touch on it again quickly would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the pandemic, obviously things are a bit different within education abroad. As of last week, all spring 2021 programs for the Binghamton campus have been postponed. Going forward, though, for summer and for fall, what we're doing is evaluating programs on a case-by-case basis. So we're talking with our partners abroad about what their plans are. How did you handle spring 2020 and how will you handle something like this in the future? And then going from there, because one of our biggest concerns, obviously the biggest concern is student health and safety, but then there are other concerns, for example, credit recovery and what that looks like for our students. If you're planning to use your education abroad experience towards your major and then something happens to your program, how do you recover that credit? So we're taking that into consideration. And then we're extending kind of what we call the pre-departure orientation for our students. So instead of doing our typical pre-departure orientation where we talk about all of the challenges that education abroad holds and how you'll grow and the wonderful things of education abroad, we're adding onto that. So every student who applies to a Binghamton program for going forward for the foreseeable future will meet with the Associate Director for Health and Safety within our office to discuss risk and all the different possibilities to make sure they have a comprehensive plan for what to do should anything happen. And then also make sure that they are really aware. We want students to know what the risks are. We don't want to send you abroad if it's too risky. We don't want to send you abroad if your expectations are going to be too far derailed in the current time. So essentially we're doing a lot more talking in many different ways just to ensure you're safe and that everything goes well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Before I'm gonna have one more question for you guys that we can do live for you, but I'm gonna ask Christy to now share the Binghamton admissions visit page so you guys can take advantage of all the virtual offerings that we've had thus far that we're continuing to add to. You can also go on there and check out open house sessions that we're gonna be having all week, so really take advantage of that. I'm also gonna ask her to share the Center for Civic Engagement's home site so you guys can get some quick links for that, copy and paste that, keep that handy, as well as the Office of International Education and Global Initiatives site as well. So I'm going to ask her to share that, which she is right now. Thank you so much, Christy. And it looks like our questions are slowing down. I have one question I know I wanted Linda to touch on, and then also we'll just make it a two-part question in addition to the one that one of the students asks here. So first, are there paid abroad experiences if you do an internship abroad? Are there opportunities for students to be paid for that or compensated for that? And then in addition, just to kind of to finish things up here, is there a minimum duration for study abroad or an exchange program that you can talk about as well?
Yeah, great questions. For the first half about internships, any internships through our office they are for credit. So you get credit instead of being paid. A very similar function happens through our Career Center on campus, where you can do an internship out in the local community and receive credit for it. So you cannot get a paid internship, but you do get credit, which is very exciting because you can build it towards your degree. And then the second part of that question was about the minimum number of the length of an exchange program. Typically, exchange programs are full semester, so they're either during the fall semester or the spring semester. However, there are some exchange programs that happen during the summer, and that varies from school to school. So we have a summer economics lab program in Germany that is an exchange program, but it is 3 months long, so it's almost like a full semester. But it depends on the school. If it's a non-exchange program, it could be as short as a week, and it could be a spring break program, for example.
Wow, that's great. So really, you have a lot of options in terms of duration and different opportunities abroad. I think that's going to end it today. Let me just make sure we don't have any other questions happening. We're getting to the ending point. It's almost 7. But I want to thank all of our panelists today, Linda, Barry, Al, and the students as well that helped out, Alex, Maven, Julia. I hope you guys were able to gain some important takeaways in terms of real world and community learning, those high impact experiences that you can impart in at Binghamton. And they really supplement the academic experience, and that's kind of what Binghamton's all about. And we have these great people here to kind of facilitate that for all of us. And thank you guys for coming. I hope you learned a lot today. We are so happy to have you, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. Everybody. Bye.